if you had a conversation with the average football fan about the greatest individual season by any playmaker in modern football, the kind of response you would get is probably say stuff like any one of Luka Modric's seasons between 2016 and 2018, or maybe somebody would say, well, Toni Kroos's 2014 year where he won the World Cup, and yet still others might say Mesut Ozil's 2011, 2012, or 2015-2016 season, and don't forget Kevin De Bruyne's 2019-2020, or Bruno Fernandes's 2020 and 2021 season. Now, whoever is bringing up Kroos and Modric is doing so purely out of peer pressure, okay? Because these stats, like seriously, how has Luka Modric never had more than 7 assists in a La Liga campaign? Fraud much? Anyway, on a serious note though, KDB, Ozil, and Bruno Fernandes have all posted some rather filthy numbers, 30 plus goals and assists from a midfielder is no joke. It's really difficult, especially if it involves hitting that 20 league assists territory. That right there is some rarefied ground, populated only by some bona fide legends of the game, and an actual GOAT as well, somewhere involved in there. That's right, since we started keeping these stats, only 4 players have managed to register 20 assists in a single league season in a top 5 league. Those players are KDB, who he's done it twice. He did it with Wolfsburg and he's done it as well with Manchester City. Thierry Henry, Lionel Messi, and of course, our man of the moment, Mr. Xavi Hernandez. And before I go any further, I just have to do like an honorable mention. Shout outs to Mesut Ozil. That man came close to joining the 20 club on 2 occasions. First with Real Madrid in 2011 and 2012, and then once again with Arsenal in 2015 and 2016. He got 19 assists in both of those campaigns. So, slow clap for Mr. Chameleon Eyes. But we go from the German version of Mr. Chameleon Eyes to the Spanish one in Xavi Hernandez. Because you see, much like Mesut Ozil was an assists machine in his peak, Xavi Hernandez did as well have a knack for finding a teammate in a great scoring position. In fact, he was so good at it that we can definitely, confidently say that no one has hit a higher high than he did between the years of 2008 and 2012. And if you think I am capping, then please do stay tuned, because you are about to be amazed, have your mind blown. And if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about, just, fix yourself up a snack, get comfortable, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, because I am about to show you why peak Xavi Hernandez was GOAT material. That's right, GOAT material. So, where to begin? I mean, unless you were born after Facebook, you should be very familiar with Xavi Hernandez and who he is. But you might not be familiar with his game, but do not worry, because that's exactly what I'm about to do. Is I am about to familiarize you with his game. Because you see, Xavi is one of those guys who from a young age showed the kind of promise that led many to expect big things of him. And for quite a bit, it looked like he wouldn't be able to live up to that potential, especially when you're looking at the stats column. Because you see, whenever he would get a run of games, he'd pick up one of those, little knocks or an injury here and there that would then keep him out of action for weeks. So he never really got to build up a momentum in Barca's first team during his early years. That is, of course, part of the reason why Xavi, for example, started on the bench in the 2006 Champions League final. He had, up until a few weeks before that final, been on the sidelines due to a ruptured cruciate ligament, one of those really nightmare injuries. I mean, why else would you pick both Edmilson and Van Bommel ahead of Xavi Hernandez, right? Frank Rijkaard. Why? You've got an answer? No? Anywho, said cruciate ligament injury nearly led to Xavi Hernandez missing a World Cup, but thankfully for him, for one reason or another, he finally managed to catch a break, or at least to catch his break when it came to those injuries that were always keeping him out of the team. And he began to show exactly why he was so highly rated, so highly regarded in both Catalonia and Spain at large. 2008 was really the year that things started to happen in big ways for Xavi Hernandez. CC Drake, because after 2008, nothing was the same. And in fact, you could argue that 2008 was the most pivotal year of Xavi Hernandez's playing career, maybe even the rest of his footballing career as well, going into management. Because see, firstly, he finally managed to establish himself as a nailed-on starter for FC Barcelona. Secondly, then national team manager Luis Aragonés decided to switch things up a little in terms of playing style, owing to the fact that, he had found himself with what was, frankly, a rather filthy squad. Okay, a filthy squad that had unimaginable depth in nearly every position from goalkeeper to center forward. Seriously, just listen to this squad list for a moment. Iker Casillas, Victor Valdez, Guaita for goalkeepers. All right. And then defense, the likes of Sergio Ramos, the likes of Carlos Puyol, the likes of Marchena, who some of you probably don't remember, just sprinkled in there. And then, of course, what was more or less the holy grail, that midfield, looking at Andres Iniesta, you're looking at Xabi Alonso, you're looking at Marcos Senna, you're looking at Xavi Hernandez, you're looking at Santi Cazorla, you're looking at David Silva, you're looking at Cesc Fabregas, you're looking at Ruben de la Red. These guys, this team was filthy. It was dripping with midfielders. And what was probably more crucial for Xavi Hernandez and Spain's, filthy midfield going into this tournament, the Euro 2008 tournament is that Luis Aragonés started to pick Iniesta, Xabi Alonso, and Marcos Senna regularly in Spain's midfield. Players who understood how to play with Xavi and who were very happy to give Xavi the ball so that man could cook, all right? And there was also a third not so insignificant thing that happened in 2008, but we'll get to that later because first we need to talk about Euro 2008, a tournament that marked the beginning, I believe, of Xavi's peak. In case you didn't already know, Spain basically ran riot at the 2008 Euros. They won all but one of their matches as they needed to go to penalties to beat Italy in a tense quarterfinal. La Roja began the tournament by smashing Russia 4-1 before again thrashing Putin's boys by 3-0 in the semi-finals. And just to put this into perspective, Russia were very much dark horses in this tournament, eliminating the likes of Netherlands, who were, very, 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 very much coming into this as favorites. Anywho, Spain dispatched Russia with ease and rode to a final where they won against the Germans. All throughout the tournament, Aragonés rotated his midfielders, as all of Iniesta, Fabregas, Silva, Cazorla, Xabi Alonso, Xavi, and Marcos Senna started from the bench at some point. But if anyone has any doubts just how good Xavi was during that tournament and just how pivotal Xavi was to Spain's success, despite not starting every match or not playing more than 60 minutes, look no further than Xavi Hernandez's man of the match in that Euro 2008 final, as well as him being announced as the player of the tournament. That's right, Euro 2008 player of the tournament was Xavi Hernandez. Now, remember how earlier on I had said that there was a third thing that happened in 2008 that really made things happen for Xavi Hernandez? Well, now's where we talk about that. Now is where we talk about the appointment of a certain Pep Guardiola as Barcelona's manager. You see, if Aragones in Spain were the spark that Xavi's career needed, Pep Guardiola becoming his manager at Barca was like the gunpowder mixed with dynamite that would fuel the explosion the world was about to see from Xavi Hernandez. To put it plainly, in the immediate 4 seasons that followed, Xavi and his teammates played not just the best football of their careers, but also probably the best football any team has ever played, and Xavi was at the heart of it all. First, he gave the world a masterclass on how to assist as he amassed a ridiculous 23 league assists in Pep's first season, as well as 7 more in the Champions League. For good measure, to go on and register a staggering 30 assists for the season, on top of the 10 goals he scored too. That meant he had a total of 40 goal contributions from 54 matches. Mind you, 4 of his assists came in one game against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. This is a central midfielder we're talking about here, okay? Not a winger or a forward. A midfielder with 30 assists. That's just absolutely bonkers. But that's also just how good Xavi Hernandez was at this point. In fact, he was so good that till date, no one playing in the top 5 leagues has been able to register more than the 22 assists that he achieved in the 08-09 season. Xavi would then also go to repeat a trick he learned from the Euros final with Spain, as he grabbed an assist in that 2009 Champions League final and won the Man of the Match award once again in that 2009 Champions League final against Manchester United. The remaining 3 seasons that Xavi played under Pep would see him begin to transition as he played deeper in the field, always being the player who had the bird's eye view kind of positioning on the pitch, leaving more of the running to Iniesta and Messi. Xavi was now at this point well into his 30s, and he started getting to work establishing himself as one of the best deep-lying playmakers, capable of dictating the tempo of an entire match, easily evading an opponent's press before picking the sort of pass that only Xavi Hernandez could pick, breaking lines and freeing up a teammate such as Dani Alves, Andres Iniesta, Pedro, Villa, or Messi. Xavi's evolution would then serve to be the springboard for what Spain would go on to do at the 2010 World Cup under Vicente Del Bosque, and of course the 2012 Euros as well. With the emergence of Busquets also being quite vital, Spain were able to almost solely dedicate Xavi to the duties of ball retention and providing creative impetus, a task which he excelled at, as he was often playing a facilitatory role to some of the filthy work that Andres Iniesta would go on to carry out in some major tournaments like the Euros 2012, the 2012 Euros final, for example. Yet another final, by the way, in which Xavi grabbed a vital assist, this time for Jordi Alba. Xavi would of course go on to have more clutch performances for club and country, scoring goals in El Clásicos and captaining Barca to a record 2nd treble towards the end of his career. I could honestly go on and on for hours on end just picking through Xavi's big performances with a fine-tooth comb, but I think that I have given you more than enough to make any reasonable human stop for a moment and realize that peak Xavi Hernandez is actually GOAT material.